In this video, we are going to practice solving equations by taking square roots. Well, number one, we unsquare this by using the square root. Anytime you take the square root of both sides, the solution will have to be plus or minus, so don't forget that. So that's going to give us x equals plus or minus. Now, the square root of 27 is 3 radical 3. So that's plus or minus 3 radical 3. For problem number 2, we have to do the extra step of subtracting the 8 from both sides first. So that's going to give us x squared is equal to 64. And then we take the square root of both sides. Don't forget your plus or minus. That's going to give us x is equal to plus or minus 8. For number 3, we need to subtract 51 from both sides first, and that's going to leave us with b squared is equal to 36. So then when we take the square root of both sides, don't forget your plus or minus. That's going to leave you with b is equal to plus or minus 6. Same thing on number 4, subtract that 32 from both sides. That's going to leave us with m squared is equal to 80. Then when you take the square root of both sides, don't forget your plus or minus. That's going to give us, so the square root of 80 is 4 radical 5. So that's plus or minus 4 radical 5. So on number 5, you add 7 to both sides. That gives you 3x squared is equal to 27. And then when you divide both sides by 3, you're going to get x squared is equal to 9. Take the square root of both sides. Don't forget your plus or minus. That gives you x is equal to plus or minus 3. Alright, on number 6, we subtract 11 from both sides. That's going to give us negative 2x squared is equal to negative 48. So then, when we divide both sides by negative 2, that's going to give us x squared is equal to positive 24. Take the square root of both sides. Don't forget your plus or minus. So square root of 24 should be 2 radical 6. Number 7, you're all set to take the square root of both sides right away. Don't forget your plus or minus. And that's just going to give you x is equal to plus or minus 6 immediately. Number 8, we need to add 3 to both sides first. So that'll give us x squared is equal to 16. Taking the square root of both sides, don't forget your plus or minus. That's going to give us x is equal to plus or minus 4. Number 9, you would add 5 to both sides. That's going to give you 3x squared is equal to 27. Next, you would divide both sides by 3. That gives you x squared is equal to 9. Then you take the square root of both sides. Don't forget plus or minus. So x is equal to plus or minus 3. Alright, so on number 10, we will add 14 to both sides. So that's going to give us x squared over 2 is equal to 14. To get rid of this 2, you should multiply both sides by 2. That way these will cancel out. That's going to give you x squared is equal to 28. When you take the square root of both sides, don't forget your plus or minus. Alright, that's going to give us plus or minus 2 radical 7. Alright, on number 11, whatever you do, do not distribute the 3. That's the common mistake that I often will see. Instead, we want to divide both sides by 3. And so that's going to leave the x minus 2 squared is equal to 11. Now, to unsquare this, do not try to square these two things and get x squared plus 4 or something like that. That's another mistake I see. To unsquare this, we need to take the square root of both sides. Alright, don't forget your plus or minus. So that's going to give us x minus 2 is equal to plus or minus radical 11. To get this x all the way by itself, I now need to add 2 to both sides. Alright? However, when you add the 2 to the right-hand side, put it in the front. Don't put it on the back. Put it in the front before the plus or minus. So that's going to give us x is equal to 2 plus or minus root 11. And you just leave it like that. Okay. So we will subtract 6 from both sides as our first move. So now we'll have 5 times x minus 3 squared is equal to 45. Again, do not distribute this 5, whatever you do. You can't distribute when it's being squared like this. Instead, you want to divide both sides by 5. And that's going to give you x minus 3 squared is equal to 9. Do not try to square these pieces. If you want to unsquare this, you need to do the square root. So that's going to give us x minus 3 is equal to plus or minus 3. Of course, to get that x by itself, we need to add 3 to both sides. But put it in the front. Okay, so that's going to give us x is equal to 3 plus or minus 3. Now, we will not stop here. When we did the previous problem and we got this, we just stopped. Okay, because understand that this means two things. 2 plus radical 11 and 2 minus radical 11. These are not like terms. They can't be put together. So that's why you just had to stop. Okay, however, these are like terms. They can be put together. So you need to understand that this means 3 plus 3 or 3 minus 3. All right, plus or minus means plus or minus. So that's going to give us two solutions. X equals 6 or x equals 0. All right. A common mistake I'll see is students will see plus or minus 3 and they'll add 3 to that directly and they'll say, oh, that'll just be plus or minus 6. Well, that's wrong, okay? Plus or minus 6 means 6 or negative 6. We got the 6, but there's no negative 6 here. Instead, it's a 0. So make sure you understand. Don't just add the numbers when you have plus or minus. Put it in front and then understand you're doing 3 plus 3, that's 6, and then you're doing 3 minus 3, which is 0. So this would be wrong. All right, last problem. Do not subtract these. Okay, this is multiplication, and you cannot subtract before you've done multiplication. So instead, you must subtract the 8 from both sides first. Alright, so that's going to leave us with negative 3 times the quantity x plus 1 squared is equal to negative 24. Okay, then we're going to divide both sides by negative 3. Again, do not distribute the negative 3. When something is being squared, it has a power, you cannot distribute. Instead, you want to divide both sides by negative 3. Okay, that's a horrible 3. Don't judge me. So these 3's are going to cancel out. So that's going to leave me with x plus 1 squared is equal to positive 8. Okay, now we will take the square root of both sides. Don't forget your plus or minus. So that's going to leave us with x plus 1 is equal to plus or minus, and this is going to be 2 radical 2. Alright, then we're going to subtract 1 from both sides, and again put it in the front. So that'll leave me with x is equal to negative 1 plus or minus 2 radical 2. And that's as far as we go. We can't add these together because these are not like terms. Alright, I hope that was helpful. I will see you on the next video.